On November 18, 2020, researchers in the Moab Desert discovered something unusual. While flying over a remote patch of wilderness, a lone passenger spots an artifact that, for all intents and purposes, should not exist. Standing in the middle of the rugged, dusty terrain is a thin pillar of metal. Its age, creator, and purpose are completely unknown. The structure is more than a dozen miles from the nearest signs of civilization. It stands about 3 meters tall and consists of what appears to be 3 stainless steel panels arranged in a triangular prism. The sheet metal is embedded in the ground with prefabricated grooves cut directly into the rock underneath. The whole object is in nearly pristine condition, with hardly any visible damage or wear. It contains no writing or any details that could possibly reveal its origin. For the wildlife rangers who stumbled upon the site, it's the most peculiar thing they've ever seen, and as far as they know, they're the only people on Earth who are aware of its existence. The crew are now faced with an odd decision. Their immediate instinct is to share the mysterious object with the rest of the world, but doing so would attract a lot of unnecessary traffic to such a remote spot in the desert. Unassuming sightseers attempting to reach the landmark could end up getting lost or stranded. With this in mind, the researchers arrive at a compromise. 2 days later, the Utah Department of Public Safety announces the discovery on its Instagram page. The internet will get its first glimpse of the fascinating structure, with one catch. Its location was to remain undisclosed. In an official press release, the publishers chose to name the object under the curious label of the Monolith. The creator of the monolith is unknown to the rest of the world, but are you? In modern times, staying anonymous is much harder than you think. If you use the internet in any capacity, it's only a matter of time before some very unsavory people know exactly who you are.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
In the last 5 years, you've probably noticed an alarming rise in fake scam messages filling up your inbox. That's because just about everywhere you go online, your personal data is constantly leaking. It gets scooped up by shady companies called data brokers who make a fortune off of compromising your privacy. These companies collect your information, package it, then sell it off to the highest bidder. And guess who's buying? Scammers on the other side of the globe, who bombard your phone and email with non-stop spam designed specifically to rip you off. Just take a look at what one of these data broker reports actually contains. It's disturbingly detailed with names, addresses, phone numbers, and much, much more, all captured and sold without your consent to people you'll never meet. And the worst part is, this whole process is completely legal. So if you think that Uncle Sam is gonna step in and save the day, you better keep on dreaming. It seems that on the internet today, everyone's out to get you. It's about time you finally had someone on your side. This video is sponsored by Aura, your go-to service for getting online crooks to back off and leave you alone. Ordinarily, to get your personal info off the web, you have to waste countless hours tracking down these data brokers and manually requesting that they take your name out of their system. Aura will scour the web and track down these brokers automatically so you can scrub your data in just a few clicks. But that's not all. Aura will also alert you whenever your sensitive data gets exposed on the dark web. Combine that with real-time credit and fraud monitoring, and Aura is your all-in-one solution for online security. They're so confident in your protection that they'll even insure you for up to $5 million of identity theft damages. The internet is like the wilderness. It's best to leave no trace. Take back your privacy today with Aura. Start your 14-day free trial with the link in the description below or by visiting aura.com/EmpLemon. Sign up now and become unknown once again. When your privacy's under control, it gets that much easier to disappear into the wild. And who knows, while you're out there, you might discover something incredible. The term monolith is not very well defined. Broadly speaking, it can refer to any single massive stone. In the field of geology, the term may describe a distinct rock formation that stands out from the surrounding landscape. In architecture, a monolith is more specifically defined as a tall, freestanding spire. It's a form most closely associated with the stone obelisks of ancient Egypt. These ornate monuments started appearing nearly 4,000 years ago and signaled a turning point in the course of human civilization. When the ancient Egyptians first constructed these objects, no one had ever seen anything like them. Not only did they tower over the landscape, their proportions seemed to defy conventional wisdom. If you've ever tried to stack blocks as a kid, you understand that the taller you build something, the more precarious it becomes. The laws of physics don't tend to agree with structures being both tall and slender. To unlock the obelisk, mankind had to reach a certain level of mastery in mathematics and craftsmanship. Their existence served as an unmistakable stroke of intelligent design. However, perhaps the most significant detail about the obelisk is why they were constructed. Never before had so much skill been dedicated to something with no practical purpose. These monuments were never intended for any sort of human habitation. In fact, their purpose was entirely religious. They tested the limits of how far we could go to satisfy something that we envisioned as greater than ourselves. But it turns out that the desire to show our reverence may have actually revealed our arrogance. Because in attempting to appease the great deities of nature, we produce something that could not possibly exist in nature. The obelisks were designed with a strict adherence to geometry. They were fashioned with fine edges, level faces, and precise angularity, properties which are forbidden for any stone produced by natural forces. They capture our attention not just as a prominent landmark, but as an indisputable creation of man. If you were trekking through the wilderness and spotted one of these on the horizon, you would know that other people must not be far. It was here where mankind's obsession with the monolith began. Before long, we started to worship the stone itself, and not necessarily what it represented. After the fall of the Egyptian Empire, the gods for whom these monuments once stood had been rendered null and void. However, the victorious Romans had developed their own affinity for the stones. They liked them so much that they found the tallest one they could and painstakingly shipped it back to Rome. This practice would go on to be repeated by many of history's most powerful nations. Today, ancient Egyptian obelisks can be found in Istanbul, Paris, London, and New York City. They survived to witness a totally different world, and now, they're far from the only monoliths around. We currently live in the age of the skyscraper, engineering marvels so sophisticated that they make the dusty stone blocks of the past look downright primitive. But as our towers soared higher and higher into the clouds, our relationship with the monolith started to change. In its modern usage, the word monolithic tends to carry a negative connotation. While the ancient obelisks evoked a sense of human familiarity, today's skyscrapers achieve the opposite effect. Many would describe these things as cold and intimidating, which could just as easily describe the entities that occupy them. The modern world is filled with ambiguity. So much of our society is dictated by shadowy corporations that tower above us. Their motives are often murky and dubious, which makes their presence unnerving. As businesses have grown more greedy and dishonest, their relationship with the public has turned adversarial. Today's skyscrapers are much more than a simple show of force to the outside world. Their true purpose may actually be to conceal what takes place on the inside. In an age of paranoia and atomization, we now consider monolithic things to be far less human and far more alien. Today, the single most well-known example of a monolith can be found in the realm of fiction. It serves as an ominous visitor in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Its design resembles little more than an opaque black box, but for such a basic prop, it manages to produce quite an unsettling response. The monolith stands out to us as a physical impossibility. It's too smooth, too slender, and too perfect. It appears in places where it absolutely should not exist. Human beings are supposed to be the most intelligent creatures in our domain. It would be deeply threatening for us to encounter anything smarter. Throughout the film, the very presence of the monolith evokes suspense. It sits perfectly still, but it feels alive. When you look at it, you get the sense that it's staring back. The monolith is real yet intangible. It's simple, yet incomprehensible. For us, it's a window into our deepest fears and our greatest desires. For whoever built it, we're just animals living in their world. If we're lucky, they'll show us mercy. It's strange to consider how an inanimate object can have such a powerful effect on our emotions. Sometimes, to truly understand ourselves, we need to venture into the abstract, to things that blur the line between reality and imagination. I believe that most of the human experience exists beyond the literal world in front of us. We're constantly troubled by places we can't be and people we never see. We dedicate great amounts of time to worrying about the future or reminiscing about the past. Our minds race to make sense of the growing complexity that confronts us at each passing moment. The only time we truly get to rest is when we're lying in bed dreaming. Reality is often unsatisfying, so we invent new ones. I can't say for certain what it is about the monolith that fascinates people so much, but for one chilly week in the Utah wilderness, we proved that after all this time, we're still obsessed with them. On November 20th, 2020, the Utah monolith was revealed to the world. The initial post flies under the radar until the DPS publishes an official report 3 days later. At this point, various online news outlets start to circulate the story, and before long, the monolith is going viral across the web. The public is fascinated by this thing and they're eager to know more about it. Thus far, officials have managed to keep its location a secret, but that wouldn't be the case for much longer. Now, under normal circumstances, a story like this probably wouldn't have drawn so much attention. But the monolith just so happened to be discovered at a unique period in history. In the midst of a global pandemic with no end in sight, most of us had been cooped up indoors for months with very little to do. People are desperately searching for something, anything to feel excited about. They're spending way more time online, learning about the world and trying to make the days pass just a little bit faster. A few hours after the press release, news of the monolith makes it to the GeoGuessr subreddit. Moments later, a particularly skilled individual makes it his mission to crack the case. By cross-referencing the geological clues with the probable flight path of the helicopter, the user is able to pinpoint the exact location of the structure. The breakthrough helps unlock another mystery of the situation. By reviewing the historical satellite imagery on Google Earth, the user identifies that the monolith had been standing undiscovered since October of 2016. After 4 years of solitude, everything was about to change. As soon as the coordinates were revealed, curious visitors began to descend on the site. The spectacle drew in people with wildly different motivations and backgrounds. There were outdoorsmen, photographers, reporters, clout chasers, UFO enthusiasts, and plain old skeptics who just had to see the thing for themselves. To their amusement, the monolith was far from an elaborate hoax. In the middle of the desert, tucked away at the bottom of a canyon, was the real thing. You could walk up and touch it, and even climb on top of it. With no rules and no one around to enforce them, people could pretty much do whatever they wanted once they got there. With each passing day, the number of onlookers continues to grow. The monolith is now becoming a full-blown tourist attraction, and the authorities are not happy. Due to its remoteness, the site lacks any public infrastructure to handle the rise in traffic. Many people trying to access the destination are plowing directly through the landscape in off-road vehicles. Without any toilets or garbage bins, various forms of waste began to pile up around the area. Officials are immediately concerned. The rise in activity could threaten local wildlife and damage nearby historical artifacts. In the days after the reveal, several state agencies released public statements admonishing the spectacle. But beyond that, there's not much that they can do. The monolith happens to reside on public land, falling under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Land Management. This type of domain is specifically designated for recreational use by American citizens. Generally speaking, anyone is allowed to hike and camp here as long as they're following state laws. Aside from towing a few vehicles, officials can't really stop anyone from taking a trip to the middle of the desert. The crowds, however unpleasant, were legally allowed to be there. So there was no getting rid of the people. But what about the thing that was drawing them in? In the United States, it is unlawful to build a permanent structure on federally managed land. This provision is primarily aimed at deterring squatters in shanty towns, but it also applies to artistic installations. The monolith, however discreet, had spent its entire existence as an illegal structure. The moment it was discovered, it was running on borrowed time. On the morning of November 28th, a new wave of eager onlookers venture out into the desert, but to their dismay, the monolith had vanished. Most presumed that the Bureau of Land Management finally stepped in, but they are quick to deny any responsibility. In fact, no official agency had authorized the removal of the structure. Eventually, a photographer comes forward claiming to have witnessed the monolith's final moments. He recalls that on the night of the 27th, a group of 4 men surrounded the object, tore it down, and hauled away the remains in a wheelbarrow. All of a sudden, this mysterious group of vigilantes had quite literally stolen the spotlight. By now, the monolith had become a national fascination, and the public demanded answers for what led to its demise. Soon enough, one of the culprits reveals themselves. On December 1st, a slackline performer by the name of Andy Lewis posted a video to various social media platforms. The footage depicts himself and 3 accomplices dismantling and removing the monolith on the night in question. Lewis's motive was simple. He wanted to restore the landscape to its natural state. Prior to the intervention, as many as 100 vehicles had been seen near the site of the monolith. If left unabated for much longer, it's possible that number could have risen to the thousands. For Lewis and his buddies, the spectacle was already out of control. Unwilling to wait for an official investigation, they decided to take matters into their own hands. Needless to say, many were not too pleased with the explanation. At this point, the public seemed to care more about the monolith than the environment around it, and the folks who took it away ended up receiving a considerable amount of backlash. Critics were quick to point out that Lewis had been previously banned from the park system for illegal base jumping, which shed some doubt over his status as a conservationist martyr. Over the next few weeks, several members of the party claimed to have experienced harassment and even death threats over the matter. Eventually, Lewis would publish a follow-up video showing a mostly reconstructed monolith in his backyard. In the same post, he attempted to clarify some of the ongoing drama around the removal. Seemingly backtracking a bit on his original motive, he mentions rescuing the monolith from a supposed rival plot to destroy it, although this detail has never really been substantiated. He also claims to have donated the remains to the Bureau of Land Management so that its origin could be properly investigated. But after all this time, whatever investigations were conducted have brought us no closer to finding the mysterious creator of the monolith. During this whole fiasco, no credible artist ever claimed responsibility for installing the structure. This was possibly due to fear of legal repercussions, but it's hard to deny the temptation that this anonymous mastermind may have experienced. For about a week-long period, the artist behind the monolith could have potentially become one of the most famous people in America. Who knows what that could have done for their career, or how much extra money they could have made down the line. But whatever the case, it's clear that whoever built it had more important things in mind than fame and fortune. The public would try in vain to find them. The monolith was initially attributed to visual artist John McCracken, who lived in the Southwest and had a history of making similar sculptures. However, his death predated the installation by about 5 years, making his involvement rather unlikely. Currently, the most plausible culprit may actually be a Utah welder by the name of Derek Despain. He was known to build metal structures that resembled what was found in Moab, and supposedly lived just an hour away from the site. Curiously, around the time of its discovery, Despain vanished from all social media. Thus far, he has yet to comment publicly about the matter. At this point, it seems unlikely that the true creator will step forward anytime soon. Perhaps we're better off not knowing. Human beings are driven by the unknown, the ethereal, the parts of life that still feel like magic. I believe that if the monolith had been a conventional sculpture by a documented artist, it would not have come close to the same level of notoriety. It certainly would not have contributed to what came next. The end of the Utah monolith was only the beginning of something far greater. Over the next few weeks, people start discovering other monoliths. They are showing up all around the world. Just like the original, nearly all of them are of unknown origin. Appearing mysteriously and anonymously, they number in the hundreds. It's almost certainly the most monoliths that humanity has ever constructed over a 1-month period. As was the case with their predecessor, most would be swiftly confiscated and dismantled. But for a brief window of time, the monolith ruled the day. There's a good chance that we still haven't found them all. None of this had to happen. When the original researchers first laid eyes on the shiny metal object in the middle of the desert, nothing was stopping them from just tearing it down and keeping the whole thing a secret. And yet, against their better judgment, they decided to show the rest of us what they found. Some primitive instinct convinced them that the world needed to see it. At a moment when many of us were experiencing the most miserable days of our lives, we had finally found something to feel excited about. In hindsight, this whole period was just one big fever dream that most of us would be happy to forget. However, for a span of time characterized by so much dysfunction and hostility, it's nice to know that in the middle of it all, people never lost touch with what makes us human. In our most trying days, we could still go out in the world and make something cool for everyone else to enjoy. If you're watching this, you probably can't name any individual who was alive 3,000 years ago when the first obelisk was constructed. 3,000 years from now, practically everyone alive today is destined to meet the same fate. The term monolith has one other meaning. In the field of anthropology, it refers to extraordinary wonders that were left behind by people who are now long gone. Beyond a certain point, we can never really know who they were and what they stood for. The only evidence we have of their existence is what they created. The Moab Desert is home to ancient petroglyphs. Some of them date back even further than the earliest Egyptian pharaohs. The dry climate and solid terrain has preserved these artifacts remarkably well. The markings represent a one-way message through time. In a vague sense, we can understand them, meaning that whoever painted them must not have been so different from you and I. For as long as this narrow thread connects them to the present, they will not be truly forgotten. In the end, human expression will outlive human beings. The things we give to the world will eventually be our only legacy within it. We can never know the people of tomorrow, but hopefully, they'll get to know something about us. What we leave behind for them will probably be ambiguous, just like the times we currently inhabit. In the distant future, long after the last trace of our modern zeitgeist has faded away, our descendants will be taking a trip through the desert where they will discover something unusual. At the bottom of a canyon in the middle of nowhere, they notice a triangular cavity inexplicably cut into the ground. Unlike the other ancient artifacts that can be found nearby, this one seems to serve no discernible purpose. The observers are puzzled as to who made it and for what reason. It's so bizarre and out of place that some of them swear it must have been aliens.